My name is Tom Manger. It's M-A-N-G-E-R. I'm Chief of Police in Montgomery County. With me are the commanders of our Major Crimes Division, Captain Darren Frank, Lieutenant Sean Gagan, and the commander of our 4th District, Laura Lanham, as well as Paul Starks, our Public Information Officer, and Assistant Chief Daryl McSwain as well. That's everybody. So again, thank you for being here. Today, around noon, detectives and members of the Montgomery County Police Search and Rescue Team were searching a wooded area near Price's Distillery Road in Damascus. They located a patch of freshly dug ground in a secluded area of a field. Cadaver dogs indicated on the area, and ultimately, detectives found the body of Laura Wallen in a shallow grave. Her body has now been recovered. At 5:30 p.m. this afternoon, Tyler Tessier, Mrs. Wallen's boyfriend, was arrested for her murder. Since Ms. Wallen was reported missing by her family 9 days ago, we've determined that Mr. Tessier was the last person known to have been with the victim. They were seen together on surveillance camera video on Saturday, September 2nd, in a grocery store near the victim's home. It is suspected by investigators that she was killed the next day. The victim's sister received texts from Ms. Wallen's phone on Monday morning, September 4th. We have determined that these texts were sent by Tyler Tessier, the suspect in this case. Since this investigation began, Mr. Tessier has provided information to detectives that led them to suspect his involvement in this case. In addition, Mr. Tessier was determined to have driven the victim's car to the Columbia area. He admitted to removing the front tag and disposing of it. Tessier also texted an acquaintance asking for a ride to Baltimore late Sunday night. He said that he needed help to, quote, to clean up a mess. The acquaintance declined to assist him. Mr. Tessier also admitted to disposing of the victim's driver's license and her iPhone. The break in this case came when it was determined that Tessier had made several trips to an acquaintance's property on Price's Distillery Road in Damascus. Investigators showed up there today with a search warrant for the property, which was a dwelling along with open fields and woods. During the search, the team observed tire tracks on a nearby property. They observed a freshly dug ground on the property, which was some distance from the property that they were originally searching. We spoke with the owner of the property where the ground had been disturbed, and we were ultimately able to recover the victim's body. The property owner of that property has no involvement with the case. Warrants for Mr. Tessier's arrest were obtained this afternoon, and he was taken into custody at around 5:30 p.m. this evening. He's being charged with the murder of Laura Wallen. I want to thank the detectives and all of the members of the public, both here and in Howard County, who assisted us with information related to this case. I also want to thank my homicide detectives who worked around the clock on this case and were able to bring it to closure. And in closing, while this arrest does provide some answers, I'm aware of the impact that this had on Ms. Wallen's community in Olney. We know that many of you are grieving with Laura's family tonight. So I'll answer any questions that you might have. Yes, sir.
Was there anything in the news conference on Monday in which raised some eyebrows and made you think something was wrong here that would lead you to believe that Tyler Tessier was a suspect in this case? Because he did speak to the media.
That's correct. And the decision to allow him to participate in that news conference was a calculated decision made by the detectives in this case for the express purpose of hearing what he had to say. It was done with the approval and knowledge of the victim's family.
What was in that text message? There was a text message that was sent. The day that Laura Wallen went missing, you all wouldn't tell us what was in it, but the The family said it was troubling.
She sent a text message to, and I can't remember if it was her sister or her friend, saying that Tyler had taken her to an open field up in the Damascus area, and she says, "I'm not sure why we're up here, but he's taken me to this place in the middle of nowhere," something to that effect. The friend said, "Take a picture," and she did. And
She was pregnant. Did he give any indication why he allegedly did this?
I can only speculate as to the motive. We have not gotten any information from him about the motive in this case.
Fox 5 was able to confirm that he's living with a woman in Damascus. Has that woman been questioned in this investigation?
He's actually got 3 different places where he was living. He'd live in 3 different locations, typically during the week. Everyone who he lived with has been interviewed in this case.
Was this woman known to police when Tyler was introduced to the public as Laura's boyfriend?
Yes.
What led you to the field? What led you to that particular area in which the cadaver dogs then said, we're going to look into this? Why there?
We had been able to determine over the past week that he had made several visits to that area, and we also determined that he would occasionally, during some period of time, would stay there. And so we got a search warrant for that property, which including a dwelling and quite a bit of wooded area and fields. And the search team, our search team, actually did search the perimeter of those entire woods, and at some point noticed tire tracks that went into an area of the woods and that's what led them to the area where we recovered her body.
Was there
Will he be
like
charged, or can he
a-
be charged with the death of the unborn baby?
That's up to the state's attorney.
Chief, is there a history of any issues with the suspect, Ms. Wall?
I'm not aware of any, but I don't know what his criminal record, if any, is.
What is the extent of your conversations with the woman that he lives with in Damascus? Is she cooperating? Have you ruled her out? Have any involvement in this case?
I'm not sure where she lived, but I know that we've interviewed her, and I'm not aware of what the results of that interview are.
Chief, had you honed in on Mr. Tessier as a suspect by the press conference on Monday, or was he still a person of interest?
He was definitely a person of interest. We had already identified a couple of inconsistencies in information that he'd given us. And again, it was a calculated decision by the detectives to allow him to speak at that press conference. We were going to be very interested in what he had to say at that press conference. And again, it was done with the knowledge and concurrence with the family. They knew as well.
The family knew he was a person of interest?
Yes.
Prior to.
Can you just clarify the timeline of, for instance, that text message that you said that was sent to the friend? What, you said September 2nd was the surveillance video at the grocery store.
Yes.
What was that text message?
That was also on September 2nd, which was a Saturday. And then we had nothing, no activity from her phone on Sunday. And then on Monday morning, I believe it was her sister, received texts from Ms. Wallen's phone that were determined later to have that Tyler was the one that was sending those texts.
We have been able to confirm that Laura's disappearance happened around the same time she found out that Tyler was living with another woman. Can you confirm that?
She had known that for some time.
Are you all talking to the woman that he was living with?
She has been interviewed, yes.
And what has she revealed?
I don't know the results of that interview.
How would you
How about the
classify
other
this
women
investigation?
who were
Was it
involved
relatively
here?
easy to button up? I mean, it sounds like he was maybe a little sloppy in some respects, so what would you call him?
I don't think that this was a very complicated investigation. That we were helped by alert residents, both here and in Howard County, who provided us information. We were able to confirm some of the locations where the suspect was through information that the public gave us, and ultimately being able to determine that he had been up to this area in Damascus was ultimately led us up there, and this again our search team was able to find the body.
Chief, you've been all over this investigation. How does this make you feel?
Listen, this is just one of those tragic cases where you have an absolutely innocent victim, and it's just senseless killing, and these are the kinds of cases that so often have a significant impact on the community where they occur, and that was certainly the case with this investigation. And so we were very saddened I mean, we had a real sense of dread that this was the way it was going to end up, and we were sad when we found the body that confirmed our fears. So these cases are just senseless violence.
Chief, what's going to happen moving forward with the suspect, a arraignment date or anything? What's the next step for him, and where is he right now?
He's in our custody right now, and he'll have a bond review probably tomorrow.
Was there any evidence on the...
Say again?
How was Laura Lowen killed?
We're going to have to wait for the autopsy to get that. Right now, we don't know.
Was there any evidence on the body that would give you some kind of a gauge, like evidence of blunt force trauma?
There was not. So we're going to have to wait for the autopsy to get that information.
Do you know when he trafficked to Damascus?
Well, the photo was texted on Saturday, September 2nd.
Chief, can you reiterate to us what led you to the Damascus area?
Yeah, the fact that we determined that he would stay up there occasionally, and that he had been up there over the past week several times. And so that led us to get a search warrant for that property where he would stay. And it wasn't until later that we were able to get the photo that she texted on Saturday, and were able to determine that photo was taken on this property up in Damascus.
Is there someone who told you that he had been there several times within the last however long?
That information was received through investigation. I'm not going to talk about how we got that information.
I'm sure you've already said this. Is anyone else possibly going to be charged along with Mr. Tessier?
Right now, he is the only suspect in this case, but as with any case that we have, the arrest doesn't end the investigation. The investigation continues, and but right now, he is the only suspect that's been charged, and the only suspect that we are focused on in this case right now. But again, the investigation continues.
Talk all about motive in the case.
I can't talk about motive because I don't know what the motive was. I know that people have speculated the fact that he was in another relationship. People have talked about the fact that the victim was pregnant. That's all speculation. I don't know what the motive was in this case. Thank you all very much.